Hi, I'm Chin. Let's watch the video and learn about prehensile-tailed porcupine. The prehensile-tailed porcupines or Coendus, genus Coendo, are found in Central and South America. Two other formerly recognized neotropical tree porcupine genera, Echinoprocta and Sphigerus, have been subsumed into Coendo, since Sphigerus was shown by genetic studies to be polyphyletic, while Echinoprocta nested within Coendo. 1. Characteristics. Among the most notable features of Coendo porcupines are their unspined prehensile tails. The front and hind feet are also modified for grasping. These limbs all contribute to making this animal an adept climber, an adaptation to living most of their lives in trees. They feed on leaves, shoots, fruits, bark, roots, and buds. They can be pests of plantation crops. They also make a distinctive baby-like sound to communicate in the wild. Young are born with soft hair that hardens to quills with age. Adults are slow-moving and will roll into a ball when threatened and on the ground. The record longevity is 27 years. 2. Species. 2.1. Bicolored spined porcupine. The bicolored spined porcupine, Coendo bicolor, is a species of nocturnal and arboreal rodent in the family Erithozontidae. It is found in Bolivia, Colombia, Ecuador, and Peru. The head and body of Coendo bicolor measure about 543 mm, and another 481 mm as tail. The body is covered with dense spines, pale yellow at the base and black-tipped, and significantly darker on the midback. The bicolored spined porcupine has a fully prehensile tail that is primarily free of spines. 2.2. Streaked dwarf porcupine. The streaked dwarf porcupine, Coendo aegialis, is a porcupine species in the family Erithozontidae. It is known from the lowlands, below an altitude of 400 meters, of eastern Ecuador, and may be present in Peru as well. It appears to be nocturnal and arboreal in its habits. This species was formerly sometimes assigned to Sphigerus, a genus no longer recognized since genetic studies showed it to be polyphyletic. Its closest relatives are the frosted hairy dwarf porcupine, Coendo pruinosus, and the brown hairy dwarf porcupine, Coendo vestitus. 2.3. Bahia porcupine. The Bahia porcupine, Coendo insidiosus, is a New World porcupine species in the family Erithozontidae endemic to the Atlantic forest of southeastern Brazil. It was formerly sometimes assigned to Sphigerus, a genus no longer recognized since genetic studies showed it to be polyphyletic. Sphigerus pallidus, formerly considered a separate species but known from two young specimens only, is a synonym of this species. 2.4. Black-tailed hairy dwarf porcupine. The black-tailed hairy dwarf porcupine, Coendo melanoris, is a South American porcupine species from the family Erithozontidae. It is found in Brazil, Colombia, Ecuador, French Guiana, Suriname and Venezuela. This species was formerly sometimes assigned to Sphigerus, a genus no longer recognized since genetic studies showed it to be polyphyletic. Its closest relatives are the frosted hairy dwarf porcupine, Coendo pruinosus, the brown hairy dwarf porcupine, Coendo vestitus, and the streaked dwarf porcupine, Coendo aegialis. 2.5. Black dwarf porcupine. The black dwarf porcupine, also known as Koopman's porcupine, Coendo nyctamera, is a porcupine species from the New World porcupine family endemic to northern Brazil. It occurs in the Amazon rainforest east of the Madeira River and south of the Amazon River. It inhabits primary forest and possibly second growth. It is nocturnal and herbivorous. 2.6. Frosted hairy dwarf porcupine. The frosted hairy dwarf porcupine, Coendo pruinosus, is a porcupine species in the family Erithozontidae from Colombia and northern and eastern Venezuela. It was formerly sometimes assigned to Sphigerus, a genus no longer recognized since genetic studies showed it to be polyphyletic. The species lives in lowland tropical rainforest and cloud forest at elevations from 50 to 2,600 meters. Its closest relative is the brown hairy dwarf porcupine, Coendo vestitus. 2.7. Andean porcupine. The Andean porcupine, Coendo quichua, is a species of rodent in the family Erithozontidae. It is found in the Andes of northern Ecuador and Colombia as well as in Panama. This porcupine is little known, but is probably arboreal, nocturnal and solitary like its relatives. The species is thought to be uncommon to rare and the population decreasing. It is threatened by deforestation, habitat fragmentation and agriculture. Although it is morphologically distinctive, it has sometimes been described as a subspecies of the bicolored spined porcupine. However, genetic studies have shown it to be closest to the stump-tailed porcupine. 2.8. Roosmelen's dwarf porcupine. Roosmelen's dwarf porcupine, Coendo roosmelenorum, is a porcupine species from the New World porcupine family likely endemic to northern Brazil. Only 3 specimens were known at the time, and only one had a collection locality. It is named for Mark van Roosmelen and his son Tomas, whose collections from the Middle Madeira included the first known specimens. It was soon assigned to the genus Sphigerus, although this genus was not recognized by the authors. Genetic studies in 2013 have since showed Sphigerus to be polyphyletic. This taxon was omitted from the study. Nonetheless, it is commonly classified as Sphigerus roosmelenorum. Coendo roosmelenorum may be misspelled due to a conflicting basionym combination. 2.9. Stump-tailed porcupine. The stump-tailed porcupine, Coendo rufescens, is a species of rodent in the family Erithozontidae. It is found mainly in Colombia, with a few records from Ecuador. This species was formerly sometimes assigned to Echinoprocta, a genus no longer recognized since genetic studies showed it to nest within Coendo. Its closest relative is the Andean porcupine, Coendo quichua. 2.10. Santa Marta porcupine. The Santa Marta porcupine, Coendo sanctamarte, is a rodent in the family Erithozontidae. It is known from dry forests on the lower slopes of the Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta and Serranía del Perijá mountains of northern Colombia, at altitudes below 500 and 1,100 meters, respectively, and intervening lowlands, and may also be present in nearby parts of Venezuela. It has been described as a subspecies of C. prehensilis, although the latter may be a species complex. 2.11. Paraguayan hairy dwarf porcupine. The Paraguayan hairy dwarf porcupine, Coendo spinosus, is a South American porcupine species from the family Erithozontidae. It is found in Argentina, Brazil, Paraguay and Uruguay. They have a short tail and gray-brown quills and feed on fruits, ant pupae, vegetables and roots. This species was formerly sometimes assigned to Sphigerus, a genus no longer recognized since genetic studies showed it to be polyphyletic. The population formerly recognized as the orange-spined hairy dwarf porcupine, Sphigerus villosus, has been reclassified to this species. Its closest relatives are the bicolored spined porcupine, Coendo bicolor, and the black dwarf porcupine, Coendo nyctamera. 2.12. Brown hairy dwarf porcupine. The brown hairy dwarf porcupine, Coendo vestitus, is a species of rodent in the family Erythozontidae. Found in the Andes in Colombia and Venezuela. Its natural habitat is subtropical or tropical moist lowland forests. It is not easy to study as it is only known from a few specimens and wasn't recorded from 1925 until the 2000s. The porcupine is nocturnal and arboreal, feeding on leaves, shoots, and fruits. Habitat loss severely threatens it and it may even be extinct. Formerly listed as vulnerable. It is now designated data deficient. It is not known from any protected areas or conservation measures. This species was formerly sometimes assigned to Sphigerus, a genus no longer recognized since genetic studies showed it to be polyphyletic. Its closest relative is the frosted hairy dwarf porcupine, Coendo pruinosus.